of Coach's Night Out. We're at Lebanon's historic public square at Town Square Social. Town Square Social, located at 145 Public Square, open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week. And Cody and Kyle also own, right across the square, Cedar City Brewing Company, 112 Public Square. We're in the overflow room upstairs, available for parties and private events. All you got to do is contact the good people at Town Square Social. Advantage Roofing Contractors, LLC, makes this program possible. Donnie Self and Rob Painter. Shop Springs Creamery, Jeffrey and Elizabeth Turner. The Salas Realty Group, 120 Public Square, Lebanon. THW Insurance Services, LLC. Cumberland University Athletics, and D.T. McCall & Sons, Lebanon, Carthage, Lafayette, Franklin, and Cookeville, home of free delivery. Let's run down some news. Today, on Wednesday, when we put this show together, was an incredible news day. A lot of things going on. The NASCAR Cup Series schedule got leaked, and the Athletic picked it up, and it looks like the Nashville Superspeedway has been awarded another race weekend, and they usually do that in 4-year increments. This one will be the weekend of April 29, 30, and June 1. More details Thursday at wilsonpost.com. The Atlanta Falcons on Tuesday released Lebanon High class of 2019 Zion Logue, a 2024 sixth-round draft pick, 197 overall out of the University of Georgia. He's expected to sign back with the Titans practice squad if he clears waivers, and we'll know more about that on Thursday. And the Blue Devil Football Foundation's annual Homecoming Golf Scramble is set for September 9 at the Lebanon Golf and Country Club. For sponsorship information or to register a team, contact Kenny Salas at 615-268-2165. Coach's Night Out. Of course, we're live right now on Blue Devil Broadcasting. You can also find this show later on the Wilson Post Facebook page, on my personal Facebook page, and we'll spread this thing all over creation after we go off the air. You'll notice this isn't Chuck Gentry here with me because of the heat regulations that the county puts out, and it was 100-something degrees today. The Lebanon High football team began practice at 6 o'clock, and that's what Chuck does for a living. He coaches that football team. So Jim has volunteered or been volunteered to come up here and be with me tonight, and we're going to talk about a couple of things. But thank you for being here. It's no fun me just sitting here rattling into the camera. Thanks for being here, first off.
I appreciate the invitation. I talked to Chuck earlier today. He came up when he realized that they were going to have to move practice back. And I actually called him this evening before I came over and asked him if there was anything he wanted me to say. He wanted to make sure that everyone knew why he was not here with the practice time being moved back. He also said that after last week that, in his words, that we obviously need to practice, and that they were working on correcting a lot of the mistakes that they made. He said all those mistakes were on him, and they're going to be doing everything they can to get that corrected this Friday when Upperman comes to town.
You're a football fan, and I have found that the coaching staff in general at Lebanon High, everybody pulls for everybody.
Yeah, it's a special place right now, a special time with Coach Gentry and Coach Barrett, Coach Wakefield. I mean, just all the coaches. I mean, we all get along well. We all pull for each other. We share a lot of athletes. I mean, I've got 22 varsity basketball players, and I think 9 of them are playing football right now. But that's with all the sports. We do a lot of different stuff together as far as whether it be supporting a casino night or, coming to each other's games. I'll be working the gate, one of the on-field gates tomorrow night there at the Upperman game, or Friday night at the game. So, it's everybody pulling in the same direction for one Lebanon, and we really all buy into that and believe that.
The basketball programs have got a golf tournament coming up the 31st on Saturday. Talk about that a little bit, if you would, Jim.
Yeah, that's something we've been doing. This is actually my 14th year as head coach, and we've done a golf tournament every year that I've been here. Probably really since Coach Barrett's come on, and I think this is his 10th year. we've done that with the girls program, and really got a good partnership there. For the last several years, we've had it at Long Hollow Golf Course over in Gallatin, and it's this Saturday. We do still have spots available for teams if you're interested in playing. We've got about 18 to 20 teams already pre-registered, so we've got a good turnout. It's $125 a player, $500 for a team. That gets you breakfast, 18 holes of golf, as well as lunch. We will have prizes for 2 flights, first and second place in 2 flights. Also, hole sponsorships available, and so we're looking for a really good turnout on Saturday. Hopefully, the weather stays well, and it's something that helps both of our programs as we kind of start getting geared towards basketball, which will be here before you know it.
And it takes money to run a basketball program. It really does. Talk about where some of those proceeds are going to go.
So any of the gear, the uniforms, the practice gear, basketballs, any of the travel expenses that we have, whether it be buses or we're self-sufficient, so we pay all of our officials, we pay security, we pay for all of our team meals, just like Chuck and them, just like everybody's having to do right now. And so all of the help that we can get from our community, and we're very blessed to have a really giving community, helps out in every facet.
And you have to pay for officials. Chuck has 6 or 7. You've got 3. What kind of money do those guys make? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, actually, we hosted the Middle Tennessee official assigners, and Gene Manise they were at our school today having their preseason meeting, and that was something Corey and I sat in and talked with him a little bit about some compensation stuff that, just like everything else, it's going up. But I think for right now, the last few seasons, it's been $110 an official, plus we pay for their travel, their mileage. So you're looking at $330 a night for a varsity game, plus we have 2 JV games before that, and those officials at that cost. So, and plus paying security, paying the people working the clock and the table and all that kind of stuff. So, it's not a cheap deal. Anytime you host a home game, hopefully you create enough revenue to cover expenses and then make some when it's all said and done. But we've been fortunate to have put out a pretty good product the last several years with both our girls team and us. So those gate revenues really help us, especially when we have rivalry games.
When the TSSAA set the districts up, it took Mount Juliet and Lebanon and split them. It took Lebanon and Green Hill and split them. But the coaches got together and decided this is too good a rivalry to not play each other. And I think that speaks well for the guys in this county who coach these teams to say, hey, we're gonna figure out a way to play. You've got a pretty good schedule, and you try to get those guys in before Christmas, right?
Yeah, we're actually playing both Green Hill and Mount Juliet like we did last year, and the first time that they've made that transition to where we're not in the same district in a long time anyway, at least with Mount Juliet. But so those are some of the most special nights of our season. Now it's not quite having the same scenario since it's not a district game, but you're not going to find a better crowd than some of those rivalry games. I mean, Lebanon and Mount Juliet, as long as it's been around, and then obviously with the onset of Green Hill, that's become a big-time game. And so luckily we were able to work it out with our schedule, and we basically set those dates before we scheduled any other non-league games, just to try to continue those rivalries, and also from a financial perspective, it benefits everybody involved.
There's a big turnover, or there has been a big turnover in the boys' side of our district with the coaches.
Yeah, last year, previously we graduated 7 seniors the year before, and so we had a really young team coming in last year. But the top 2 teams in our league, Cookeville went to the state championship game. Laverne also made the state tournament, and then we came in 3rd, which was good for us. But Cookeville's coach is transitioned out of coaching. Wilson Central coach Michael Teeter has gone over to Friendship, and then Stewart's Creek, who is also in our league, Matt Bradshaw, former Lebanon player and assistant coach, and obviously county and at Friendship in Watertown. Went from Stewart's Creek to now, as I guess you said,
his dream job.
His dream job
Mount
is
Juliet
AD
Christian.
and I guess principal.
Yeah.
At Mount Juliet Christian. So we've got half of our league will be new coaches, and so there's some different styles that will be incorporated there. So there will always be transition with that kind of thing, but it's normally that much in one off season.
That's just juggled the whole thing. It really has.
It really has. And one thing too, this coming season, we host both the district tournament and the region tournament at Lebanon.
Okay.
And so that's something that we're in the process of preparing for, and that we're excited about, and opportunity for our kids to potentially not have to leave Campbell Brandon until you get to Murfreesboro. So
it's a good basketball league, even without Green Hill and Mount Juliet being a part of it. Do you see at some point, of course you never know what the TLSAA is going to do, but at some point down the road, might the county come back together?
This next year is another reclassification cycle, so there's no telling. I mean, I was talking with Coach Barrett, and we were talking with some of the TLSAA people today, and I think since this last classification cycle, there's been close to 70 new schools added across the state. I mean, you look at just all of the new schools that are coming in, and so that's obviously going to do some things to the numbers with the classifications. So, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to have to drive to Cookeville or to Laverne and
Or
Stewart's
McMinnville.
Creek when Green Hill and Mount Juliet are just right across 109. But I'm glad that we're able to maintain those rivalries, and hopefully we'll be able to come back together in the same league sooner than later.
Let me talk a little football, because this is technically a football show. Week 2 of the season opens up Friday, August the 30th. Number 1 ranked in Class 4A, Upperman, comes to Lebanon on Friday. Upperman is a solid squad. They played in the 4A state championship game a year ago. Gordonsville at Watertown. That is a knockdown, drag out. That'll be at Robinson Stadium on Friday night. DCA visits Friendship Christian. That's going to be a 7:30 kickoff at Pirtle Field, and they play each other in every sport, and that is a huge rivalry. Mount Juliet goes into Nashville to play at Hunters Lane. Green Hill goes to Clarksville to play West Creek High School. Wilson Central goes to Montgomery County, where they play Northwest. And Lookout Valley out of East Tennessee comes to play at Mount Juliet Christian Academy. That'll be at Ed Suey Field. Let me talk just for a second about, again, some of the folks who have helped make this program possible. Shop Springs Creamery, 2816 Sparta Pike, the official chocolate milk of Blue Devil football, and this week's team meal sponsors for Lebanon High football. This one's kind of special. On Monday, Isaiah Douglas, who's playing at Cumberland now as a full-time student, class of 22 at Lebanon High, paid for and spoke to the freshmen in JV on Monday took care of their meal before they went to Mount Juliet. On Thursday, the Ministry Center of Hartsville Pike will provide a meal, and on Friday, the Williams family will provide a pregame meal. You guys do some pregame meals and make sure that your kids are fed, because quite frankly, if some of our guys if you don't feed them, they may not eat that day. That's just the nature of some of our guys.
There's that aspect, and then also that's a really good time of camaraderie and team bonding, of being able to sit down and share a meal together, and that's something that our guys have really looked forward to. I know that Coach Gentry and I know Darren Reynolds has done a great job lining that up. We're fortunate to just have a lot of whether it's restaurants or people in the community or churches that have reached out and are always very supportive of that type of thing for us as well. And so one thing too, I'd be remiss if I didn't just talk about our athletic department. How I feel like we got one of the best athletic directors in the state, in Zach Martin, and he's very helpful in that area and just across the board with everything that he does. And I think that the success of our athletic programs, and then the caliber of coaches, and then the longevity of coaches that you see, the retention that we have. And we've talked about the turnover, and we've been fortunate to keep a lot of the coaches around at Lebanon, and I think a lot of that's due to him, and also with our administration with Principal Scott Walters as well.
That does say a lot about the people above the coaches, the AD, the principals, the administrators. You don't see a lot of folks with that longevity staying hitched, even in some of the assistant coaches and some of the, quote, non-revenue sports. There's a lot of turnover at several places. Well, that's almost the norm in Middle Tennessee, but it's been pretty steady at Lebanon.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't feel like you've got support, I mean, because we obviously aren't doing what we do for the money, but if you don't feel like you've got the support from your administration, from your athletic department, then a lot of times you're going to look to try to go elsewhere. But like I said, we're fortunate to have support in those areas. I feel like we're in a great community, a growing community, one that I've grown up in and been a part of my whole life. And it's just special to be able to continue to be a part of that, and appreciate everything that you do and all the coverage that you've given our teams and our players and our programs over the last 40 plus years.
Yeah, don't remind me. You, like me, are fortunate. You outkicked your coverage when you got married, but you have a wife who understands the game and probably asks some very pointed questions after games, like my wife does about every game that I cover. What's that like having somebody who knows? You don't have to explain the over and back. You don't. Meredith knows what's going on out there, and when she keeps the scorebook and I'm sitting at the scorer's table, there's a place right there that she grabs me sometimes to keep her from screaming. And sometimes that doesn't work.
My my nephew got baptized this weekend, and my sister lives over in Gallatin, and as I was walking in, a guy reached out to me and said, "Hey, aren't you the coach at Lebanon?" And I said, Yes, I am. He said, "Well, I keep the clock at Gallatin, and I really think the world of your wife." But she definitely does a great job with that. I'm fortunate. I mean, she knew what she was getting into on the front end. When we were dating, and I came over to her house one time, and she was watching, Sports Center, or she was watching a game. Most of the time, that was what was on. I knew I had a good one, and her and my two daughters, they don't miss. I mean, they love going to the games. They write the players' notes and draw them pictures and all that stuff. So it is a family affair, and with as much time as all of us, whether it's football staff or basketball staff, from a head coach's perspective, we spend a lot of time away from our families, but we also want them to be able to feel a part of what we do, and Meredith and Avery and Bailey definitely do that, and so I'm very fortunate.
Let's talk quickly. Jared Hall came back to Middle Tennessee State University after a year at Tulsa. Have you had any conversations with Jared?
I have. He is doing really well at MTSU. One of the big things that was a scenario with Tulsa and then also with Middle is, he's 6'8", 195, 198, and they really wanted to see him have some significant weight gain to be able to play at that,
to guard
D1 level.
6'8".
Correct. And so since he's been there for 2 months, he's gone from 198 to 216. He's put on 18 pounds of good weight. He's really enjoying Coach McDevitt and the staff there. I know he grew up a lot, going 9 hours away, and he had he played a lot, probably the first 3 quarters of the season, and then when they kind of got into that conference play and the rotation kind of got dialed down a little bit, and his minutes didn't work out. And, he could have definitely gone back to Tulsa. He liked it there. He had nothing bad to say about Coach Conkle out there. But, Middle recruited him really hard.
He came down to Middle in Tulsa.
It did, and he had the opportunity to come back home. And I think that that was something that has been a good move for him. We talk about sharing athletes. I mean, Jared played football for a year. And you talk about Zion Logue. I mean, he played basketball for all 4 years. So, some of our most high-profile athletes that we've had come through were multi-sports, and Chuck and I both did whatever we needed to do to make sure we accommodated them. And so I think that just kind of goes to show you, in this society of specialization, if you've got a kid that wants to play multiple things and they're willing to do the work and they've got the talent to do so, that, we're willing to make it work.
Jim, thanks for the visit. I appreciate it. You filled in very well for Chuck Gentry.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Jim McDowell, head coach of the basketball program, will be back after these timeouts. Welcome back to Town Square Social. Coach's Night Out is the show. My sponsors include Advantage Roofing Contractors, LLC, Shop Springs Creamery, the Salas Realty Group, THW Insurance Services, LLC, Cumberland University Athletics, and DT McCall and Sons, home of free delivery, Lebanon, Carthage, Lafayette, Franklin, and Cookeville. Not only do we have a big high school schedule with number 1 Upperman in Class 4A coming to Lebanon on Friday night, Gordonsville at Watertown, DCA at Friendship, Mount Juliet at Hunters Lane, Green Hill at West Creek, Wilson Central at Northwest, and Lookout Valley at Mount Juliet Christian Academy. This guy will be getting on a bus Friday with his football team as Cumberland takes off to go to St. Louis to play Missouri Baptist. Tim Mathis, head coach of the Phoenix, with me, and it is finally game week.
Finally. We're looking forward to hitting the opposite color, that's for sure.
Well, you have had, has it been a month of preseason camp?
Right at a month, especially if you take into account this week. So we'll practice the whole month before we get to
Was
play.
it shorter last year? It seemed like
Actually,
it was
a little. No, actually, it was a little longer.
Was it?
But just because the way I say it was longer, it probably was the same time, but we moved in a little earlier, so we had
The kids got on campus
sooner because of how it fell where they didn't want to work on the weekend, so we moved in before that. So you're basically having to babysit kids for 18, 19, 21, 22-year-olds. And, you know, that's
Not a job I want.
I just locked the door and said, it's on you guys.
Missouri Baptist. You probably don't know a world about those guys, do you?
Don't know a whole lot. We traded their head coach and I coached in an All-Star game together several years ago, and that's kind of how we hooked up. We coached an NAIA All-Star game together. He was one of my defensive coaches for that.
But he's the defensive coordinator there at Missouri Baptist.
And so, kind of called him and said, hey, you want to play? Because we were scrambling to find games when Kentucky Christian and those guys wouldn't play us. So called him and they had an opening. So, we did that. And, they didn't have a great year last year. But the thing about it is they're a pretty good football team. They just gave up. Seemed like every game they just gave up a couple of big plays and just had a couple of just mental lapses that cost them games. But they were in absolutely every game they played, and so they're not a bad team. They're kind of were like us. They had some young guys on their team that got to play some, so they have a lot of guys coming back as well. So it'll be a good matchup. It's definitely not, I don't think their record indicates what kind of team they were. I think they're a better team than what their record was. But you don't know, you don't know. Obviously, you don't see them every year, so you don't really know what, and it's vice versa. They don't really know what we're going to do or what they're going to do. So, when you start playing it, it's going to be fill out, okay, are they still doing what you think they're going to do, or are there new wrinkles? Obviously, we probably put in new wrinkles, and they're probably going to put in new wrinkles. So,
do you swap a couple of scrimmage tapes, or is it just one? Or
we swapped 3 games from last year, and we both Jason and I both picked. It wasn't the 3 last games. What we did is we picked one from the beginning of the year, one in the middle of the year, one toward the end of the year. So typically that way you see some changes if they made any from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, and they kind of did the same thing with us.
Apparently, there's honor among these football coaches.
He's somebody we've become pretty good friends. We did that, heck, 3 or 4 years ago, and we've stayed in touch. He comes down to Coach Job's camps, OTA camps, and he's always come down to that. So he's somebody that we text back and forth a whole bunch. So. There are some of us that are still have a little honor about us.
Let me ask you, I would bet the greater St. Louis area is a pretty fertile recruiting area.
It's not bad for where he's at. Now he has to deal with probably a stone's throw from where he's at is Lindenwood University, which used to be an NAIA school, and now they're a Division I school. And, so he has to compete with those. But it is St. Louis, has some really good football teams there. He does have some decent talent there, and he comes down to the Southeast and he goes to Texas, and being where he's at, he can go to Texas pretty easy too. So he has a good recruiting base.
And I think he has been the head coach there since they launched that program. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. So he's been there, several years, and he's got a really good staff. He's got his defensive line assistant head coach. He's been head coach at Alabama State. He's coached in the NFL. He's been to a lot of places. I think he's been coaching right at 40 years, and and then he's got some younger guys. But he's got a good staff too, and it's definitely a team that we just can't show up and think we're going to win the game.
Before we went on, I got your depth chart earlier in the week. You were telling me that there may be some movement because you got some guys kind of beat up in that offensive line, which, again, that's your baby. That's where you went back to coaching. But there has been a little bit of a shuffle there.
We've had to shuffle. We got a couple of guys that are banged up that we're going to get back, but they're not going to be ready for this game. But because we've had depth, that we'd be panicked probably last year of what we're going to do, how are we going to figure this out. But we've been able to move it around because we do have enough depth and have guys that can fill in, can play. The dilemma will be when those other guys get back is, who you sitting, because
a good problem to have.
It's a great problem, and it'll probably won't be necessarily that. It'll just probably be more of a rotation where we'll be pretty, in shape for the fourth quarter as far as that goes, of being able to just wear people down with being able to rotate linemen. So it has been. It's not just on O-line. We have same things happen to us, a couple of spots on D-line and at receiver too, where we just got some guys. None of it's major. Most of it's muscle issues, and got some pulled muscles that we just got to get them back. They probably could go, but we're taking the long-term approach of making sure that we have them for the whole year instead of just trying to force them in and then have a problem all year.
You've got 130-ish in the program. How many do you travel to St. Louis?
So this game, just because I was dealing with it today, so I know we're actually putting 68 guys on the bus to go with us, which is, most people in the NAIA don't travel that many guys, but we can because of partly because the new rule where you can play 2 games and it not count.
Really?
With that and our your counter, your non-counters and half counters with academics, we got a lot of those guys, which makes us able to take a lot more kids than you normally.
Let's pause right there and talk about that. A non-counter means that it's kind of like a salary cap
it's definitely
in NAIA football. But if you have guys whose academics are up here, they don't count against your roster limit.
Whatever, how much ever money they get, 3.6 or above GPA, we don't have to count any of their money toward our. And I refer to it as our salary cap.
Yeah.
Because we have 24 scholarships that have to be on the field, so that money doesn't count. So if they're a 3.3 to a 3.59, you only have to count half of that money. So, we try our best not to recruit the dummies.
And that's the incentive to get guys in there.
It is an incentive, and I think. I think if anybody really studied the NAIA, the best teams in the country have a lot of those guys, especially, and we're the same way. We don't have a lot of O-linemen that count money.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of changed from my day and age. We were all dumb. Now they're all smart, but, it helps. It can get you with more skill guys, more receivers, more running backs, and not even knocking that, saying that they're not smart, because we got a lot of those guys that are half and non-counters as well. But everybody in the country wants those smart kids anyway, because you don't have to chase them or you go into class. So everybody wants those. It's just it's something I really push, because it can really, really help you. That causes the problem of, do we have to get another bus or not? And it goes to
So you're
that
taking
point.
2 buses.
We're taking 2. I'd love to have the problem that we had to take 3 because we would have enough to travel that many. But most people only travel 50 to 55 on the road, so we're taking a whole extra unit of people, and it helps us on special teams and all that. But it makes it a little crowded on those 2 buses, but it's a good thing.
Trainers, medical staff, they go in a van. There's you stick all the equipment under the bus.
Yep.
Talk about
it's
packing that stuff.
It's a chore, so we put all of it under there. All the trainers put all their stuff on their van, most of that on the van, and then we do all that. We'll take we take like Subways to eat on the way there, and then we have to go. On this trip, we'll have to go out and eat for dinner and breakfast each time, which we normally try not to do. But the hotel we're staying at doesn't have a normal restaurant. They have a high-dollar restaurant in there, and they were like, it's going to be $40 a plate for your guys. It's going to be a, quote, buffet, but it's not an all-you-can-eat buffet, and it's just you get these portions. Like, those portions ain't feeding our guys. We'll be not grinning and not happy after we eat and looking for something else to eat. So, we're going to go to our O-line's already salivating. We're going to go to Corral for dinner and breakfast and eat them out of house and home. And
I've seen these guys pull into one of these buffet places like Golden Corral, and they get off that bus in a hurry.
They do, and it's a funny story about that. Several years ago, when I was back at Shorter, we got into one. I think we're at Campbellsville, actually, or somewhere around Campbellsville. And as soon as we walked in the place, the general manager yelled back at the cook staff, "Drop everything in the fryers at Fry now," because those guys can eat you out of house and home, and it's and that's the one thing you want. Especially on Friday night, you want to make sure they eat a bunch because that's basically their fuel for Saturday.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure that they get enough food in them Friday night.
Are there a couple of things? I know it's kind of cliche. Hang on to the football, execute, get the right people in and out of the game. You had a kind of a tune-up practice on Saturday. Those things are going to be so important at that season opener.
Right. We always have, there's several things that I think you have to do, and we have it in our meeting room, in our facility is, first of all, Phoenix can't beat Phoenix. We can't control effort penalties, never even complain about effort penalties, but the offsides, the false starts, all that, you can't have that. We can't beat ourselves. So that can't happen. Turnover margin's always big. You got to win that. That's a big deal. Win the run game, and that's not just offensively. That's defensively. You got to run the ball, and you got to be able to stop the run to win. And then you got to play 4 quarters. We can't. We had most of the games we lost last year is we didn't play 4 quarters. We might have played 2.5, 3 quarters really well, but we didn't play 4 quarters. So you got to play 4, and it's just. The last thing is special teams. Special teams, a lot of people don't take it serious, but that in a close game, that's usually the difference in winning or losing is not giving up a big play on special teams or making a big play on special teams. But
they can flip field position just like
in a
that.
hurry, and it's the biggest thing for us is the turnovers and the penalties. If we can not have that, I think we got a great shot at winning the game.
What's been the mood of this team as you move from practice to getting into the routine of going to class, and now you're in game prep?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I know we've had this talk when I was telling you, I think this is the best group of just everybody, the energy, the effort, the attitude. This is the best group we've had since we've been at Cumberland. They have every day they have brought the energy, brought the juice, and and it's hard some days. It's when, like we just talked about, you're practicing for almost a month. It gets monogamous sometimes. It gets mundane. You got to worry about, are they going to bring it? And most 95% of the time they have. We've had to get on a couple of times with it, but like today, it gets so hot out there. We go out to practice and there's 3 camels walking across there, and I thought I saw an oasis with a pool, but it was a mirage, and it was hot. We had to just go helmets because of the heat. We took our shoulder pads off and we just kept going like there was, and that's a big deal because usually when you do that, you have a drop in practice. So it's like, let's take it easy because it's just helmets.
A lot of times when it's hot like that, they go stupid on it.
And that's the biggest. We stress that is heat usually is a mental toughness deal. Is all it is. And I tell them all the time, and and I'm not. Doctor people don't get mad at me or whatever, but your body usually, your mind will tell you to quit for your body ever will. And it's not about pushing them to where they're going to collapse or whatever, but you have to fight that mental toughness. That's human nature. It's when, everybody talks that when life gets tough, the mind's going to tell you to stop. And if you can fight your way through that, that's where teams get really, really good. It's when you fight through that mental, and it is when it gets hot. That's your biggest obstacle, is being mentally tough to handle that.
You try to pound the fluids in them during the week and make sure that they're getting waters and Gatorades.
Absolutely, that's all we preach. And most of our guys, to be honest with you, every one of them are carrying gallon jugs around of water that they drink all the time. I don't know. I'm not a water guy. I don't know how they do that, but a lot of them do that. And we haven't had this year too, and it's been hot some. This year we really haven't had a lot of heat issues, dehydration issues, and usually in the past several years prior, we've had 3 or 4 guys that ended up having to go to the hospital, get fluids, and we haven't had any of that this year. So it's been really good that way.
Well, and the guys you coach, the big, thick offensive linemen, normally their body mass doesn't cramp.
No.
Big guys can handle it pretty good. It's the skill guys.
Yeah, we retain water better than everybody else. So
it's just the way it is.
We are the camels of the football world. We retain water. As you can tell, I got my reservoir packed right now.
Well, Tim, thanks for the visit. Have a good trip. Get up there and play good football on Saturday against Missouri Baptist and bring home a win.
We're definitely going to do that.
All right, pal.
Thank you. Go Phoenix.
Tim Mathis, head coach at Cumberland, with me on the program. We'll be back after this time out. Thanks for being with us here on Coach's Night Out. We're live from Town Square Social on Facebook Live, and it will be repeated on several other platforms later tonight and tomorrow. Thanks for being with us. Our sponsors, as always, Advantage Roofing Contractors, LLC, Shop Springs Creamery, the Salas Realty Group, THW Insurance Services, LLC, Cumberland University Athletics, DT McCall and Sons, Carthage, Lafayette, Lebanon, Franklin, and Cookeville. Good folks at DT McCall. Well, of course, this isn't Josh Crouch, head coach at Green Hill High School. We think he's in transit to get here. This is Christian Kaposi, who does he teaches at Green Hill. He's the play-by-play voice of Green Hill, and he is, I'm so proud to say, he's the play-by-play voice of Cumberland University football on Saturdays on the radio on WANT. Thanks for stepping out of the bullpen.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Stop by to see Coach Mathis, Coach McDowell, and Coach Crouch, and I'll step in for Coach Crouch. When he gets here, I'll exit stage left.
You teach at Green Hill. You wear several different hats, and your program there at Green Hill, the kids are involved in a lot of broadcasts. Talk about some of the things you guys are doing.
Yeah,
right
absolutely. That's been a focus, and that's kind of just been my background, sports broadcasts, my entire life, really. And so I started teaching there. This is my third year, and then just getting the students a little bit more involved. Last year we did our first ever student-run broadcast. They did everything with a freshman football game, called the game, produced it, camera work, and this past week we did our first volleyball broadcast. And starting to expand on that a little bit more. So it's really cool to see so many students involved in it. Just it's really an area overall with just media, social media, broadcast. Photography is a huge one, videography as well. A lot of students just involved, and seeing that's another avenue of that was my story. A kid that wanted to play sports and saw the writing on the wall that wasn't going to happen for a very long time, and then took advantage of this kind of medium and able to still be involved in the game and be it on the sideline in the broadcast booth. So I think a lot of kids are starting to see how they can be involved not just on the court in multiple aspects as well.
You're a product of Doc Holliday's program at Wilson Central, who has been light years ahead of everybody else, and Doc has done a great job at Wilson Central doing what he calls their sports information operation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it was certainly a foot in the door. That when I went to Belmont, I said, "Hey, I've called basketball games, I've called baseball. We did a tennis match. We just did a bunch of random assortment of assignments that I got an early opportunity in doing." And so I think that's what's the cool thing about the high school level right now is just the involvement of students that they just see that they can get it on their resume, an opportunity to get in front of a camera, behind the camera, whatever they're interested in. And like I tell everybody, no matter what level it is, what game it is, right? It is treated as the big league, right? For some people, this is the biggest game they're ever going to play in. Their grandmother or grandfather or uncle or aunt in town, out of town. If they're there at the game, if they're going to go back and watch later, this is a big moment for them, right? It's their Super Bowl, and treat it the same way for you, and just kind of see where that'll take you. That's kind of the mindset I've taken my entire life of everything I do. So I think it's kind of stuck in with some of the kids that get to teach at Green Hill.
Talk about the tail end of the week for you, your Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Talk about that, because I've done it.
Yeah.
He's living it. It can get a little wacky.
It's hectic. I tell a lot of people in football season, it's super structured for me. You said tail end of the week, but I'll just run you week or day by day real quick. Monday, we host a coach's show for Green Hill. Do that for an hour. Start to work on stats from Friday night to put it together, and that's what I've told Coach Crouch. The cool thing when we opened is we have a history book that's 18 pages long right now of everything we've ever done. So I go home and put all that stuff together. So that's Monday. Tuesday and today is all preparation for Friday night for Green Hill, Saturday for Cumberland. Tomorrow I'll go and interview both coaches for Green Hill and Cumberland, along with players for our pregame show. Friday is Green Hill football. Saturday, It's great when we're playing at Noakes Lassiter Field for Cumberland for home games, but this Saturday we're on our way to St. Louis to take on Missouri Baptist. So travel, do the game, and then Sunday is typically a rest day, but also got some involvement with if the Titans are at home and has some things going on there as well. So football season is super busy. It's kind of the whole rinse, wash, repeat kind of cycle, but it's my favorite time of year. I mean, for 2.5 months, you just kind of get into the groove of it, and it's one of those things. Halloween night, or if we're going to the postseason or Cumberland in early November, it's like how did this already get here so fast? Because it just really, once you get into the groove of it, it just goes super fast.
Talk about your travel plans for this weekend. You've got a Friday game in Clarksville.
Yeah.
As Green Hill plays at West Creek, and then Saturday you've got an afternoon kickoff in St. Louis.
Yeah.
That's not humanly possible.
Well, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it work. Especially after last year, we had two road trips last year where we flew to the game and flew back day of for Cumberland. So Bob Lee, Kyle, Allen, and myself, made that work. But for Friday, Saturday, I'll call the game. Friday night at West Creek High School. Kyle and Bob are gonna meet me at a point somewhere in Clarksville, or maybe on the ride back on the interstate. Hop in the car with them. We're going to go to Paducah, spend the night at kind of a midway point between Lebanon and Missouri Baptist. Jump back in the car Saturday morning, go call the game, and then come back Saturday night. So that's our plans as of right now. Never know when it's going to change.
He's got two things that I don't have. He's got energy and ambition. and it about killed me doing those trips.
Yeah. And
I'm so proud of the work that you do. And I saw this guy do a high school district basketball tournament game of two teams. Neither one was Green Hill, but he was broadcasting at Green Hill, and he had a stack of notes and had everything set up. I said, this guy is serious about it. Christian is the next wave of broadcast folks, and when I get out of this thing, it'll be a lot of fun to be able to listen to your work, because you pour a lot into it, and you guys do a great job, and I'm proud of the work you're doing on Friday nights with your high school program at Green Hill. Talk about the platform that those games are on, because it's really a neat deal that you have.
Yeah.
And I can go back and hear your games after the fact.
That's the cool thing about, we use a website called meridix.com, MERIDIX, and Green Hill Sports Network. We do, I think, a decent job on social media, updating, hey, here's where you can listen, here's how you can listen. So we do an audio and video broadcast for home games, and then it's audio only for road games. And as you mentioned, I love the archive portion of it. So going back, and I do a Hawk history segment every Friday during pregame where we play highlights from a game in the past. This past summer, I could go back to August 2020, opening night of Green Hill football, the first game they ever played at Laverne High School. We had a 2-hour rain delay, and all these certain moments where you can just kind of go back. And I talked about, for that family aspect, those are big moments. The kid that scored the first ever touchdown or scored the first basket in school history, it is all saved there on that website. And so it's a really, that's why people ask me. It's maybe not as a widely used platform as a lot of other people use, but just the aspect of the archive portion of it, and it's kind of set up for that radio aspect when we go on the road. And we'll travel, so we do every home and away football and basketball game. Basketball is a little trickier when girls and boys are playing at the same time, but we went to Florida last year with girls basketball. We went to Kentucky with them as well. It's all there, and so that's why it's a really cool aspect that's why I hold on to what we do like that, because that's kind of my baby. We're coming up on our 500th broadcast.
Wow.
On the Green Hill Sports Network at some point this year, probably be after the new year. But it keeps me busy, and have a lot of fun doing it.
Last week on the 23rd, Green Hill opened the season at home in football. They defeated Clarksville Northeast by a score of 41-7. Coach Crouch and the powers that be decided we're going to have senior night to start the season. A little bit different, but it worked out well for everybody.
Absolutely. I thought it was a really interesting move for Coach Crouch, but then you hear some of the reasons behind it. It makes a lot of sense. to give it like a single night where those guys are just in the spotlight. Where in the past, you have some of these fall senior nights and there's a lot of other moving events going on. And then if you kind of take a peek down the road of what this season looks like, and the final home game is on Halloween night on a Thursday night against your opponent, Mount Juliet, there's a lot of moving pieces in that matchup. And so I thought it made a lot of sense early in the year, night one, just to go out and say, too, it's going to be a celebration all year, really, for these seniors, and they know every time they go out how big of an event it is. I thought overall it was a really cool event, super quick, too. That's always pretty good for a senior night event when it's on point. And I think it's something that he's even told me that's something they want to continue doing going forward because it went so well.
They played well against Clarksville Northeast. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and the thing a year ago when they go to Northeast, it was a slow start. They trailed 7-0, and then they got it going late first quarter into second quarter and won the game a year ago. I think it was 44-13, something along those lines. But the message going into it, Coach Crouch and offensive coordinator Zach White, who's in his second year at Green Hill, was we got to get started quicker. And they did exactly that. 5 first-half touchdowns on all 5 drives that they had the football. Just look sharp. They look sharp. Nick Owens Jr., 2 rushing touchdowns on a guy that can do a little bit of everything for the offense. I mean, running back, receiver, quarterback if need be. And then Cannon Burrows was just super efficient. 7 of 8 passing, 121 yards, a score in the air, a score on the ground. And then the Hunter Long defense, he's the defense coordinator for Green Hill. They look pretty sharp as well. I think they forced 3 and outs to begin the night. And just super complimentary early on, and I think that was a really good start for this Green Hill team, where they just came out. And the great thing was you get a win like that, you win 44-7, things go in a good way, but they also had some teaching points that they could go in. They dropped a couple picks that they thought they should have had. Special teams muffed a punt at one point, had a couple bad snaps on some extra points. So there were some things that they go in practice this week and still work on. It wasn't just all roses and everything was fine and dandy. And I know as a coach, and a Coach Crouch was here, he'd probably say the same thing. They had some stuff to talk about, which they always enjoy.
They altered practice this week because of the heat. Chuck Gentry in Lebanon's going at 6 o'clock to start. Green Hill, like Mount Juliet has done forever, they decided they were going to go in the mornings and beat the heat.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worked out super well. I think talking to Coach yesterday, I think they had one student that wasn't there on time yesterday, and I think today everybody was there. And just and I'm sure you've talked about just the heat rules that are in place, where it would be a little bit later in the afternoon to where they could put pads on and get the kind of practice. And talking with him Monday on our coaches show, he talked about playing West Creek. They play a little bit more of a physical brand of football, and that he was not going to get the work in that he needed if they weren't in pads and if they weren't able to thud up a little bit. So he said it's been a good move so far, and especially the heat wise, you get out there in the morning, get that work in before it gets super hot. I think it's been something that's super beneficial to them, especially it's a busy week. They had a freshman game Monday at Kirkwood in Clarksville. They got another freshman game, freshman JV, I think tomorrow in Cookeville. And so there's been a lot of travel, a lot of moving parts for football this week. And I think that move it's going to pay off for them. They went, I think, 2 days, yesterday, today, and I think their walkthrough will probably be a normal time tomorrow if I had to guess.
Well, again, the willingness to be able to alter plans, and sometimes you don't have any choice. Again, Lebanon went late, Green Hill's gone early. You do what you got to do to get the work in because you got to play on Friday night.
Yeah, and I think the kids, I think it kind of shocks them for how much they enjoy it because they're getting out of the school building at 3:30 when school's done. And they're done. They go home, they can go whatever they got going on. So I think that's a nice surprise. I don't know if they did it every day, if they'd had that same reaction of, but I think it was a necessary thing like you're talking about. It's just what Mother Nature presented them with this week and had to do what they had to do.
Talk again, if you would. Let folks know how they can pick up your broadcast because you're going to be on the road. It'll be audio only. Mm-hmm. But where can they find your broadcast?
Yeah, you can find our broadcast online, meridix.com, meridix.com. I always tell people the easiest way to find our links for our broadcast are our social media pages, Facebook and Twitter. I still call it Twitter, at GH Sports Network. So we post the morning of promoting the broadcast, and we'll promote it day days in advance too.
Links will be there.
Links will be there. Yep, we'll put it there, so it's the easiest way to kind of find where to tune into the game. And then we do an hour-long pregame show starting at 6 p.m. Central Time. Talk with Coach Crouch, a couple students, student athletes as well, and leading up to kickoff at 7 p.m. So it's a full-on event. It's almost that time of the week where we've gotten up to the point, and looking forward to Friday.
A lot going on at all the high schools. I know Green Hill Volleyball has played well to open the season. Their girls soccer has played well to open the season, and I think the cross-country kids get going this weekend.
Yeah, they've had an event or two for cross country leading up, but they're hosting the Green Hill Invitational this week, which is a big event for them. It's at the Hermitage, and it's a kind of, I guess, their home track, you would say. But it's the closest opportunity. And I've been telling Green Hill fans throughout that that's your opportunity if you really want to see them. And you're not going to get much closer than the Hermitage. But yeah, you're right. There's the Aces for Ambria tournament was a really good thing this weekend.
Friendship Christian won the gold division, and Mount Juliet won the silver division. I remember those things. Green Hill was in the final of the gold division.
Yeah.
A lot of teams participating in that.
I think they said they had 9 teams total in an all-day tournament. They started at 8 a.m. and went to 5 o'clock that night. And just a super cool event, too, honoring one of their own, in Ambria McGregor. But like you said, soccer, too, I believe it was a tie with Hendersonville last night. So it's you know it better than anybody else. The fall sports is in full swing. We got golf going on. We got a little bit of everything. And it's hard to keep up with, but it certainly keeps us on our toes.
Wilson Central, I think, plays soccer at Green Hill on Thursday.
That sounds right.
And they play on the grass field is where the even though the turf field is marked for soccer, they play kind of up the hill a little bit on that grass field. I've got a photographer going there to shoot that. That group of girls has been playing well.
Super well. Coach Scott, in her first year as the girls' head coach, got her first head coaching job with Green Hill in the spring with the boys, and she'd been around the program as an assistant, but had kind of just come into the job the last couple months, and off to a real good start. They picked up a couple wins in the last couple weeks. I know for sure they played MLK, a win over Lebanon, a few other programs as well, and so it's a really good start, like you said, and they were really happy with, it was a draw with Hendersonville last night, but just knowing how good of soccer they play out in Sumner County, to have that kind of result, they were pretty pleased with that.
Christian, thanks for filling in.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You're a natural.
Well, I came by for brisket tacos, and here I am talking. So.
Well, it's funny how these things work out. Advantage Roofing Contractors, LLC, Shop Springs Creamery, the Salas Realty Group, THW Insurance Service, LLC, Cumberland University Athletics, DT McCall and Sons are the sponsors who make this possible for us. We appreciate you being with us. When Coach Crouch gets here, we'll be able to feed him and get him a meal. Don't forget to tune in to Blue Devil Broadcasting on Friday night as Lebanon entertains Upperman High School, and Green Hill hits the road and they go to West Creek. And tune in at meredix.com for Christian Capozzi and his crew. For everybody here at Town Square Social and our guys behind the cameras, I'm Tommy Bryant, and I will talk to you later.